I want to speak about a woman this morning. And it's a woman in the Bible that was never given a name. We do not know her name. Yet she played one of the most significant roles in the New Testament. And we're going to do a deep dive in her study today. John wrote about this woman, and he devoted 42 verses to this woman without a name, about her encounter with Jesus and the transformation that took place. And that tells us a lot, that she was given 42 verses. If you study characters in the Bible, I love studying characters in the Bible. And you go to find the history behind them. I mean, like, I love that. And then you go to pull the verses, and they're like 2 verses here, 3 verses here, and was mentioned once in Hebrews. That's it. But this woman had 42 verses. At a first glance at her story in John 4, you're going to see just an ordinary scene. Just an ordinary lady doing an ordinary duty. But today we're going to realize, as we go down deep in Scripture, that this woman was divinely positioned for a purpose. So we're going to begin in John 4. We're going to read a few verses along the way today. We're going to start with verses 3 and 4. He left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. That phrase, he needed to go, is very important. It didn't say he happened to be in Samaria. It was he needed to go to Samaria. Now, most of the Jews at that time, they avoided Samaria and the Samaritans. And the hatred was deep. The hatred was between the Jews and the Samaritans, and between the Samaritans and the Jews. It was mutual. And so the problem was, where they would go into Galilee, if they were leaving Judea, the route went straight through Samaria, and that was problematic for them. And so instead of going through Samaria, they would go around Samaria. Now, for you and me, that would not be a problem. We're used to, if we have to go somewhere, we look at our time and we adjust our map. I am not hitting... we lived in Lancaster. It's like, we're not going on 33. I don't know how we're going to get there, but we're not going on 33. We're just not doing it. Like, find a way. We can do that. We're in a car. I mean, what is it? Maybe a minute or two extra, but that's it. But not to them. They walked. The Bible said they were walking. And so when you look and see that they could have easily just gone straight and they went around, that just lets you know the amount of dislike and tension that was between these two people. For me, like the extra steps, we all need steps, and those, we buy watches, so it measures our steps. But as a mom of 4, I felt like all I did was do laundry and pick up, like always. Mark used to ask me, why don't you go to bed early and go to sleep? Because that's the only time the house is clean and quiet. So I'm staying up. Like, I get to look around and think, this is beautiful. Like, this is beautiful. And so most of the homes that we lived in had steps, and I would do laundry, and I would do the stacks in 4. And then I would go to the steps, and each one of them had a step, and I would put the laundry out and anything else that they left that belonged in their rooms, and I'd put it on the steps. Now, my way of thinking was, when they get ready to go up to their room, they're going to pick up their stack and go to their room. That was my thinking. Obviously, my thinking was not their thinking at all. Because what would happen is that the one that got me the most is I stood one day, and just to let you know, this was in the past 10 years, so you may be able to calculate who it was. But I stood there and watched them look at the stack, filter through, choose the T-shirt, not kidding, went to the towel, grabbed a towel, need a washcloth, grabbed that, and then left the piles disheveled as they chose what they wanted, and they went up to the room. They didn't do it. So I took the extra steps because I wanted to clean steps and took it up to the room. Like, we try to save our steps. But the Jewish people did not care about their steps. because they were not going through Samaria. But Jesus said, I need to go through Samaria. And to complicate this request that he needed, it was about noon. It was about the 6th hour of the day. And it was the hottest part of the day. The history of that time says it would be around 100 degrees. And so let's pick up in verse 7 and read a couple more. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. Now, this woman was not looking for Jesus. She didn't start her day by thinking, ooh, I'm going to go to the well and I'm going to find the man that's going to change my life. That wasn't what she thought was, well, it's noon, I can tell I'm sweating, it's time for me to go get my water. Because you see, it was a duty, a chore of most ladies in that time that they went and gathered water twice a day. They would go in the mornings before the sun was fully up so that it would be cool. And they would take their large jugs and they would fill it with water and they would carry that back to their homes. And then they would go in the evening and do the same once the sun was setting. But this also was a time that they connected with other ladies in their community. It would be like their local coffee shop without coffee. We're going to go to Jacob's Well. We're going to gather our water and we're going to talk. How's it going? Tried a new recipe. How'd your bread do this week? Whatever they were talking about took place at this well. But this woman did not go at the normal time that the other ladies went. Being hot was much better. The heat was much easier for her to take than the heat of the condemnation that she would receive if she went when everyone was there. She wanted to avoid the whispers. She wanted to avoid the judgment. She chose heat over that. But what she didn't know is that God had strategically positioned her right there at that time for a purpose. Let's begin reading again at verse 10. Jesus answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Verse 11, the woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? Here she sees this man and knows, like, number one, she quickly pointed out the obvious in this verse. She pointed out, I am a woman. Most of you do not communicate with, at that time, they did not communicate with women. Number two, I'm a Samaritan. So basically, I'm your enemy. So why would you be talking to me? Three, you consider me unclean. And yet, you're asking for a drink which will defile you according to your beliefs. It wasn't like Jesus walked up with a Stanley and said, hey, could you fill it up for me? I'm a little thirsty today. It's a little warm. That wasn't it. He was going to take a drink from her jug that she pulled the water up with. She saw that as problematic to him. But what Jesus did with this request is immediately it broke the cultural, the gender, and the religious boundaries with one request. One request did it. And then comes the moment that shifts everything. Jesus goes on to talk to her and he says, and in the middle of this, let's back up to the verse we just read. She says, now I'm quoting the obvious to you as to why you're asking me this, but let's talk about that living water. Like something in her registered, wait a minute. He's talking about living water. I want to know about it. Like, tell me about that. Let me hear about that. And Jesus says to her, go call your husband. A simple statement, just like, give me some water. Well, to this woman, she replies, I have no husband. And then Jesus, so pure, so holy, and such an example for each one of us to follow, says, you're right. You've had 5. and the man you're living with right now is not your husband. There was no shame. There was no condemnation. It was just truth spoken with grace. And at that moment, this woman, without a name, realizes, wait a minute, he found me. Like, something happened here. And we can hide a lot of things. We live in a world, digitally, we can hide a lot. We can put on filters. We can name places we're at and we're really not there. I mean, we can put us in the middle of wherever we want to be and not be there. I mean, there's just a lot that we can do that's not authentic. In that day, you couldn't do that. So she would hide by going in midday. But you can never hide from Jesus. She couldn't hide from him then, and you can't hide from him now. It doesn't matter what you say, how you post, where you go, where you don't go. It doesn't matter how you respond and say the right words, but have intentions in your heart that do not match. And Jesus is still going to know. He just might walk up to you and ask you a question. And so this woman, she doesn't take the opportunity to say, okay, time out. Now, you've come in and done a lot of things wrong today. You've broken protocol of your people. She didn't do that. She didn't say, now, you know how hard it is? Like, in this, like, women, we don't have a voice. Like, we don't have a choice often. And you are like, she didn't say that. What she said was, sir, I perceive you to be a prophet, which admitted her guilt with this awe of, oh my goodness, you summed me up in 1 second. There was no defense. What she did is she acknowledged, you are more than a man. You are more than a man. Let's go down to verse 25. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things. Now, before we read the next verse, here's one of the most astonishing parts of the story. In verse 26, Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. That one statement was the first time Jesus explicitly revealed who he was. And he chose that specific time at noon. In that specific place, Jacob's well. And with that specific woman, a Samaritan, to be the setting where he would formally reveal his true identity. It wasn't in a temple. It wasn't with the religious elite, because the religious elite, they would have judged him. But it was with a broken and isolated Samaritan woman who had been positioned for purpose. I need to go to Samaria. Verse 28. The woman then left her water pot, went her way into the city, and said to the men, come, see a man who told me all things that I ever did. Could this be the Christ? She had come for water. Her jug, jar, pot represented the tool that she needed to do her duty. In the middle of doing what she was doing, has a conversation with a man, Jesus, and she leaves the coffee pot. She forgets that she's isolated. She forgets that she needs to hide from people because of her past. And instead, she leaves what she has and runs to the city to make him known. I guess today I try to think, how would this story relate to today? And I guess it would relate that you head to the coffee shop with your laptop, connect to the Wi-Fi, get you your favorite coffee, add a pastry for good measure, and begin to work and enjoy the sights and sounds of the community that you're working in the middle of. And Jesus comes to you and says, hey, listen, Carol, I've got a job for you. There's a city in New Albany that needs you, and you know what? You're going to be instrumental in telling them. And me get up and run and leave my coffee, leave my laptop, and go tell people about Jesus. That's pretty much what she did. She left it, and she went. Verse 39 says, and many of the Samaritans of that city believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified, he told me all that I ever did. She goes, and women who don't always have a place to communicate in that time. It wasn't one or two. It said many believed because of what she had to share with them. God positioned this woman to lead from a place of personal transformation, to share the fullness of who he was to her city. It was a divine encounter at the well that she had that day. Basically, she became the first evangelist, I guess you could say. She hears and she leaves. You know, she wasn't the only one that was positioned. There are many, many characters in the Bible that are given to us that show that personal encounter position with Jesus. Esther was one. She was an orphan, but she was positioned to save a nation. Deborah was a judge and a prophetess. She was positioned to lead in battle. Rahab was a prostitute. She was positioned to protect God's people. Joseph was in prison. He was positioned to preserve a generation. David was just a shepherd boy, but he was positioned to become king. Paul was a persecutor and a murderer, yet he was positioned to preach to the Gentiles. And this Samaritan woman was isolated, ashamed, and avoided, but God positioned her to bring a city to know who he was because she was positioned for purpose. None of these were positioned by accident. As Mother's Day, I feel like it's a good opportunity for me to share a story about my mom. And I never tired of hearing this story growing up. But she was one of 4 children. She was, her dad died when she was just 9 years old. And she spent a lot of her time then helping to care for her siblings. And when she was 13, which is about the age of this picture here, my grandmother would clean houses, and when there were homes that needed their hair done, my mom would go and she would do hair to make money for their family. And so my mom was knocking on doors. She got into this home with this woman. She began to do her hair. And that day, she was very sad. And so my mom was, how's it going? Are you sad? And she had a letter. And she goes, well, I received a letter from my boy today. He's in the Army. And I feel really bad because he just grew up fast. He lied about his age. He went overseas and began to fight in World War II at the age of 17. And he just didn't get to have a normal life. And I just feel bad because he's over there without family, but he's over there without friends. And she goes, I just wish I could get some people to write him. And my mom responded and said, well, I'll write him. Give me the address, I'll write him. And so my mom left that day with the address to this gentleman right here. And she began to write him, and he began to write her back. This correspondence lasted for 3 years. My mom started writing at 13, and the war was over, and my dad flew home. He had made 2 promises when he was overseas. My dad had gotten injured, and everyone in his platoon life was taken, and my dad was the only one that remained. And my dad explained how he landed in a foxhole that day, and he looked up at the sky, and he said, if there is a God, when I get home, I'll find you. And he made a promise that day, not knowing the Lord at all, but he was going to find him. And then he made a promise that little 13-year-old girl, he's going to go find. Like, I'm going to go find her. And so Miss Beulah Rose, he decided to find when he got home from World War II. They were married in June of 1946, and I am one of their 6 children. I am number 5. Mom was young. Mom was poor. Mom didn't have a dad, but she knew how to write a letter. Positioned at a home to do hair at the age of 13, she didn't complain. It's unfair. I'm poor. It's unfair. I don't have a dad. It's unfair that, I'm having to work so young. My mom told me how proud she was. She goes, every time I wrote a letter, I just beamed knowing that I was helping the war by helping him, by just being a friend. And little did she realize what that would do to her future and to mine. I'm standing before you today because when my mom was positioned to make a difference, she took it. She wrote the letter. And therefore, I'm here today because of it. And when we look at our lives, we all have decisions that we could make. We all have tough breaks, as well as those mountain experiences that just can't be beat. We all have shame. We're not supposed to, but we just, sometimes make those decisions. And we try to hide from it. And then the Lord says, I have need to go to New Albany today. I have need to go to Blacklick today. I have need to go to Pataskala today. And he goes and he finds us. But are we going to be willing? Are we going to be so physically thirsty for the things of this world and to satisfy the physical hunger and the physical thirst that we have for not only our nourishment, but also for our material wishes, that we do not hear him mention the living water to say, wait a minute, Lord, now what was that? Where's that living water? I want to know where it's at. Like she was there. I asked myself this week, why didn't he go to the temple? Why didn't he go to the synagogue? Why didn't he share it there? Well, because they weren't positioned in the right frame of mind to take. But he looked at this woman, and you're the one. And in these 42 verses, we see her completely transform and to be the very first person to hear, and not only hear, but immediately share with those around her who he is. At Infinite, we've always said, my husband's gotten up many times and said, we have to know him and we have to make him known. That's what we do. That's what we do. But in the middle of all of that, sometimes we get a little lost in us. We get a loss in, this is just not a good week. It'll have to be another week. I just don't feel like peopling it today. Honestly, I've had those moments like, okay, I can never dog it, but peopling it sometimes can be very difficult. We may need a place of escape. Life may be too heavy. Life may be too hard. But I tell you right now, Jesus knows where you are. And he's willing to come to you. He's willing to make the journey. And he feels that tugging. We have to be willing to give him a drink. We have to be willing to let go of our jar. We have to be willing to let go of ourselves. And when we are convicted, as we have to be willing to say, you got me. That's me. You must be a prophet. Like, you have me. She was so excited that he told her all the things that she was doing wrong. She didn't feel like he stood and said, you are a sinner and you have sinned and you should be ashamed of yourself. He never said that. He just said, go bring me your husband. It was enough to open the door for her to let it all out and be willing to go and share to those that need to know who he is. And I think about all of the times in life that I have found myself in those moments of, Lord, I just don't know where and what to do. I think if you read through John, what's interesting to me is in the middle of this happening, when she decides to leave her jar and go tell people about Jesus, his disciples came back. They found him. They went into Samaria to get him. They had gone, they had purchased their food, and they're ready to get Jesus. They come up on the well, and they see Jesus talking to this woman, this Samaritan. And they don't say, there's a lot they could have said, but they go, Rabbi, we need to get you food. It's time for you to eat. You must be overheated. You must need a little strength. And he says to them, I have food that you know not of. And they didn't say, really? Tell me about it. I want to know more. They said, I didn't give him food. Did you give him food? Did you get the food off the back of that? Like, I didn't open it. Did you open up food and give him? Did you get here before I did? How did he get our food? They were all about the physical. They were all about the natural. They didn't see what Jesus was trying to do, but this woman did. This woman she opened her heart and her mind to accept that in her imperfect state, Jesus had found her. She didn't know who he was, but she knew he was not just a man. It's up to us to make room for whatever God is positioning us for. It's up to us to listen, and it's up to us to let go. We want, because we're in the society of please make me feel good because I have one life to live. We're not in a society anymore of, Lord, I'm hungering after you. I need to be right where you're calling me to be. We are hungering after self to make sure we get everything that we need out of this life that we've been blessed to live. And in the middle of that, we lose our purpose. Everything's in place. We're all ready for it. But then we lose it. In Proverbs chapter 3, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I think of my mom. I was a young teenager, and I remember her telling me one day, as the musicians can come, I remember her telling me one day, she said, Carol, everything had been going so good. I was happy, it was going good, and then out of the blue, something just like knocked the feet out from under me. I don't remember today what that was. I just remember what she told me. And she set me down and she said, you know what, Carol, there are going to be things in life that if it's just going beautifully all the time, you're just happy every day, the pieces are falling into place every day, you're not going to feel the need to pray. You're not going to feel the need to draw close. And so if you do not stumble, if you feel your heart has not been yanked a few times, you better get down on your knees. She pointed down, she said, you better get down on your knees and you need to pray and say, Lord, am I where I need to be? Have I lost sight of you? Am I where I need to be? And I ask you today, where are you in your position for purpose? Are you listening? Are you seeing? Are your arms open wide and say, Lord, here I am, and I'm going to go ahead and leave my laptop here. I'm going to go ahead and leave all these wish lists here. I'm going to go to the city. I'm going to tell them who you are. That's where our position needs to be. We may not be well known. We may not have it all together. But we should never avoid the tug of our heart. And when the Lord begins to talk to us, we need to ask him, Lord, where's the living water? Where's the living water, Lord? Can you take me to it? Can you help me see it? Lord, where's my purpose? I understand loss of purpose. I mean, I remember just 11 years ago when we began launching this church, and my kids were grown, and my youngest one got his license and was on his own, and I didn't need to take him to youth group anymore. I didn't need, I remember looking in the mirror saying, you know what, at one time I knew this day would come, but I didn't know who was looking back at me. I looked and did not recognize her. Because I thought, I'm not changing diapers. I'm not doing 14 loads of laundry a day. I'm not making 5 meals because they don't like what I fix. I'm not doing all of that. So what is my purpose? I don't know what it is. And the problem is I was so concerned about me, I didn't really hear him. Because he had a purpose for me all along. My purpose was to make him known to everyone that I could find. My purpose was to dig deep and find the living water and the food that he has that I know not of. That's what my purpose was. But I was concerned about me, and I was concerned about my problem. And the whole time, Jesus said, I need to go to Samaria. Is Jesus coming to you? Is he looking down and saying, I have need over here. I need to go there. History is shifted when we leave our jar and embrace his purpose. That's when our history changes. Your family changes forever when that happens. Yourself changes forever when that happens. Your community, your church, your job, everywhere you go shifts when you grab his purpose and say, you know what? It's me, Lord. I'll go. If I could ever meet this woman, I would love to ask her, did you ever get your jar back? Did you go back at 6 a.m. instead of noon? Were you able to smile and enjoy the fellowship of the ladies in your community? Did you let your shame go so you could be free? The only thing that we know is that a community was changed because of her testimony. So I ask you today, is your community going to change? Will your purpose lead you to your place of business, your home, your neighborhood? And will the change happen when you let go of self and embrace the purpose he's destined for everyone? Will you stand? I know today's Mother's Day and the day we celebrate all ladies, and I would love for all ladies to come forward. But I feel like this morning is much more than just to the women. I think it's to every single one of us. I think as we make a decision to push out of our shame, out of our shyness, out of hiding, push away from the escape button and come forward and say, Lord, I am yours. I am here, and I need you to take me to my purpose, wherever that is. And I tell you right now, his purpose is always going to be to make him known. His purpose is always going to be for you to open a door where people can find out the fullness of who he is. And he started with one lady. So I ask today as they begin to sing, who here is willing to come forward and say, me, choose me, Lord. Have need of me today, Lord, so I can let the world know about him and the change that can happen in the lives of every single one of us.